Hi everyone, it's great to be here today talking about mental health and all of the related topics around it in context of children and parents in these times. We truly live in a VUCA world, and that hasn't been more real. It's one plus of VUCA today. It's not only volatile, complex, ambiguous, all of that, but it's a lot more in the current scenario. And a lot of people are having trouble understanding, dealing with it, and trying to function normally in the course of this. I have three amazing panelists with me today to discuss the same. We have Meghna Yadav, Head Training and Development with Masters in Child Psychology from Clay Preschools and Daycare. We have Dr. Venkatesh Babu, GM, Consultant Psychiatry, Fortis Hospital. He's currently engaged in consulting with patients on Practo from Practo. And Parul Ori, editor and founding member of Momspresso, India's largest content platform for mothers. It's an honor and pleasure to have all of you here. I think we have the best in kind combination of mental health, of the doctor on the field, and of somebody who's curating these stories and hearing them and putting them out on a platform. So welcome, guys. Great to be talking to all of you. I'm actually going to quickly, come and reach out to you and start the conversation. What we will do is we will first speak about mental stress during the lockdown. It has been affecting parents and children. It has been affecting me not so much, but I can see how this puts children in a day where there's no discipline, where, there is freedom. It's not like holidays. There is no school. So what do you do? How do you engage? How do you deal with what kind of mental stress children are facing? And what are the reasons for it? Meghna, I'm going to quickly ask you to tell us about how the current situation is affecting children's health emotionally.
Thanks, Shreya, for the wonderful introduction. And I'll start from the phase when even the child is not out in this world. So even for pregnant moms, we have seen a pattern that when the baby is in the womb and mom dear is experiencing a significant change in the surrounding, which is not very pleasant, the child in the womb is found to sensitize it. The child in the womb can feel that mommy dear is not going through a pleasant phase. It starts from there. And the moment the baby comes out in this world, in the phase of infancy, children are found to be sensitive enough to sense that there is a significant change in my routine. Mommy, daddy, significant adults around me are not doing something that they used to do. Probably mommy dear used to go to office for 6 or 8 hours, but now mommy dear is all around me. Well, which is a pleasant thing, but for sure, for an infant or for a newborn baby, it's a significant change. We go further when the language develops and children between the age group of 2 to 6 years, when they are comprehending, absorbing everything that's happening around them. They can ask questions around it, they can feel it, and they very well wonder that why am I not supposed to go out? It is as simple as that. What is it? The sun is still coming out. I can see the moon on the sky at night. You give me the food, you give me the milk, but then you are telling me to not go out. So from any age group, from pregnancy, the baby in the womb, till even 10, 12, I talk to a lot of teenagers even who are facing this challenge that this is not my usual routine and I struggle big time. So the change in routine is something that is enough to tell our children that something is not as usual. And the more they study, the more they hear parents talking to each other, the more phone calls they go through, or the TV on in the background, the newspapers or social media that parents are connected to and talking about. These are the pointers enough to tell children that, hey, something is not as usual.
Right. That brings me now to the point that the Indian Psychiatry Society has recently done a survey, and that shows that 20% of rise is there in mental illness cases. And this lockdown has completely changed the lifestyle of people, the movements. And, just like you said, Meghna, how is this how is this contracting the virus, causing the panic, the anxiety attacks people are having, the paranoia and the fear that's set in, Dr. Babu? Can you tell us a little bit about how this is impacting people and the details around what do you fathom from this?
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me on this platform. Largely on this topic, if I have to speak on the recent survey, what you're mentioning about Indian Psychiatric Society, well, it has been noted that there is definitely a significant hike in the number of cases. This is a kind of crisis which has not been witnessed for a long time, and so that has a universal impact. When I speak about universal impact, we can categorize them into vulnerable population and the general population. So what I mean about vulnerable population is people with pre-existing psychiatric issues in the form of anxiety or depression or adjustment issues. Uh, that is one vulnerable population who are prone for crisis situations, and the general population uh, at large. This is impacting everybody, and it's a new form of crisis because it is challenging the basic human socialization values. A lot of things have changed. The way you work, the way you interact, the way you perceive yourself, and the kind of sense of security what we perceive right now. And health being a very primitive instinct, if you want to survive. So these things have been playing a very significant psychological impact across the age groups, across the socio-economic strata, and these could explain why did we find this very significant jump, almost 20% jump in the number of cases in the recent survey which is conducted by Indian Psychiatric Society. Now this has put us into a pedestal where we have to reorient ourselves in how to handle this crisis at multiple platforms, at individual level, at the family level, as an employee, or as a part of society. Uh, if we see this has been challenging even at the family structures level. There have been recent reports of increased domestic violence, increased divorce rates. The social indicators are also giving us that what is the kind of psychological impact this pandemic crisis and the lockdown is opening up right now. So the solutions also happens to be on multiple platforms.
Right, right. Now we've heard from Meghna, who has the angle of psychology and who's talking about that, and then we've heard from you, doctor, and then now I'm going to quickly switch the lens to Parul. As a mother, as an adult, as somebody who's curating these stories, there is power in shared stories, and healing can happen through shared stories. So Parul, I'm going to come to you, and I'm going to ask you to tell us a little bit about highlighting the stress that your own personal experience is telling you, and those of shared experiences from the others on the platform that they are telling you.
Sure. So it was very interesting to hear the expert perspectives because, at the end of the day, what you're seeing and how it can be explained is very different. So what we have found, and a lot of moms, we've spoken to so many moms, and, we've offered help, we've offered a hand to find out, okay, what are the key stress points that moms are going through? What are the key areas of anxiety right now as far as the children and parents are concerned? And on the whole, what we found is now it's been over 3 weeks, and we all seem to have settled down. We seem to have, settled down into a routine. We've got used to it. Had this conversation been happening in the first week, we would have got very different responses. At that time, I think we were all completely overwhelmed. We were trying to make sense of this situation, something which had been thrust upon us, which none of us had ever faced before. The whole world has been shut down. It's unprecedented. So who knows about this? Where is the manual? Where are the standard operating procedures for a world shut down? So fine, we've all got used to it. I think in the past 3 weeks, we've all kind of made sense of it. What I have understood so far is the kids seem to be okay. They've all got used to it. And I think the moms are the heroes here because we worked overtime to make sure that routines are set, meal times are, in in a routine as well as in accordance with people's preferences, the family members' preferences. That's no mean task. We all know that. We've made sure that, their Zoom classes are on schedule, that if there is one laptop in the house, who's going to get it? If there are two children, one husband and one wife, and all need that Zoom computer at the same time, so who's going to get it? How do we schedule all of that? So I think moms have been the heroes over here, and can you imagine how overwhelmed they must be? So, I mean, there are a lot of things that we've been getting from the moms, all the kind of inputs that we've been getting. From the children's point of view, I'll just come back to the point that I was making, that on the face of it, they seem to be okay. They've stopped asking to go out because they've got used to it. They've created routines and all. My question to the experts, in fact, would be that, is that worrisome? On the face of it, if they seem okay, do you think they are internalizing something? Is there something more that we need to look out for? That's a question that a lot of moms have asked us. Then the other thing that we have seen that is coming out, and that's really to do with, what Meghna, you mentioned about the news and TV and all of that, and moms being on WhatsApp groups, is a certain kind of fear. So kids know all about it. I think in school they learned about COVID and the importance of washing hands and, what this is all about. But at the end of the day, there is this fear that, oh my God, will I die if I get it? Will my family members die? My cousins who are living in the US, in New York, I have, bhaiya, bhabhi there or whatever, bhai behan there. Are they going to get it? Are they going to contract it? And what dangers, face us if there is somebody in my immediate circle who gets it? So there is a huge amount of fear. So that is another thing. One can only talk and get it over and done with. I mean, try and get it out of their system. But I think that is a huge part of the anxiety that children are facing right now, the fear.
Yeah, actually, Parul, that's a great question at this point in time, because my next question to Meghna was, how do you tell? With children, you don't know. How do you tell? What are the symptoms? What highlights mental stress? How can you tell that there is something that's bothering them? Because a lot of times they are in their routine, they're doing their thing. They probably, a lot of parents must be also working from home, stressed out, saying, just do your thing, don't come to us. We already have enough to handle. So how can you tell what the symptoms are of mental stress? What are the reasons that they could trigger it? If you can just speak a little bit about that.
For sure, and I'll start from where Parul left actually. The point over here is we are in third week, like Parul highlighted, and kind of settled with this new routine. But there is another side of coin also over here. After a strict routine of confining yourself in four walls, this is the peak. This is the peak time when our patience is going down. Earlier when we entered, it was a fight, and now our courage, our patience is hitting the bottom, and that is when it is needed most. So we need to start from there, that yes, sometimes our children are saying it very vocally, verbally, asking us questions like, why can't I go out? How long will be all of us will be in this home? What are my other friends doing? Why me only? And why happening at this time? I've never seen it before. Things like that. So when children are verbal enough, when they are talking about it, parents, dear, that's a blessing. Then they are coming to you and literally taking the stress out of their system. If children are talking to you, it's a great sign. My worry lies towards those signs that are hidden, that are not very apparent to parents, that are somewhere ignored or not highlighted through the persona. And we have many children in different age groups showing us patterns where it is not actually age specific or gender specific, but we see a pattern of children where they are either overeating or undereating. Now, undereating is something that will put antenna on to every single parent. Undereating is like, oh, you are not eating well, something is going wrong. But one thing that gets unnoticed is actually overeating. So Indian parents, I would heavily recommend you to check that overeating is another phenomenon that children enter into if the stress levels are high, if the cortisol hormone, which is the stress hormone, is higher in children. A significant change in their bowel and bladder movement is something that you need to take note of. That's very important point, parents. Even if the child is potty trained, not potty trained, is you really need to focus on frequent bladder movement. The child is using loo again and again. Bedwetting is third very significant factor to tell you that yes, there is something going on in the child's mind even when the child is so-called taking rest, but the brain is not at rest. Uh, Frequent wake-ups at night. The child comes from his or her room to your bed. You suddenly find the child snuggling with you, and it's a pleasant scene. But please put your antennas on if it is happening on almost daily basis or even more than 3 times in a week. You should take note of that, be it any age group. Teenagers, especially the older age group, we have seen a pattern that either they are more or less not talking to family members. Teenagers are anyhow giving us tough time in today's generation. Uh, and in such crises, either they are so not talking to parents about what is going on around, not asking questions about the pandemic. This is something that parents of teenagers need to take note of. That child is just not talking to you about anything. That's also not a very positive sign. One more thing I would like to highlight here, apart from these very physiological symptoms, is something that we really need to take note of as parents. Sometimes when you yourself in stress, sometimes when your emotional equilibrium is not there, uh, as an adult, and I think Dr. Babu can help us more in understanding that. But child psychology has given us a trait that as an adult, sometimes we tend to overread the situation. So before you take care of these symptoms or notice your children, adults dear, please take care of your own symptoms too, because please make sure that you are not overreading the situation. You are not over analyzing your children. The human adaptability is beyond belief, and probably this pandemic is just one example of that. So before you analyze these symptoms, adults, I would heavily recommend to have this caution in your mind that you are not over analyzing it.
Yeah. Yeah, and Dr. Babu, that brings me to you to ask you, what are the triggers for parents? What are the symptoms? How do you identify that you are stressed and you are anxious? Because a lot of times in the loop of doing all of this with the chores at home, with work, with managing the children, I think there is not enough time left for analyzing the self, you know. So there's a routine that is set into the new routine. So can you tell us how to identify these symptoms amongst adults so that we know when it's time to, you know, pull the plug and say, hold on, I need to get a hold of myself?
Yeah, I think I agree with my co-panelists. They have touched upon two important things, not as Megha was mentioning, how it is natural for us to immediately jump on to help our children. Now that is a natural instinct because that's your parental instinct. The previous response when I gave, you know, there is a human instinct to survive, and that survive pushes us to engage more in protective behaviors, be it protecting ourselves or protecting children. Now, these are primitive instincts. They don't function based upon rationality. They only function based upon taking care, protecting oneself. So you want to take care of yourself or your near and dear ones. So you don't judge and balance and make your decisions in a rational way. So that brings us to this thing. How do we identify? If you're engaging in this information, the fear of infection, the fear of something going wrong, the fear of being infected or something terrible happening, if there is repetitive thought process we are engaging in, now that is the first alarming sign. And the subsequent consequences in the form of irritability, or sleep disturbance, or difficulty in carrying out your usual routine. Number two, usually in conversations, when somebody tries to communicate their distress or their problem, you immediately jump on to fix the problem. Now, your job is not to fix it. That is one way of understanding that you're not able to sit through and listen through the distress. So, the larger principles are acknowledge the distress. You have to acknowledge the distress in order to understand the source of the problem. Once you identify the source of the problem, then you know how to solve it. Number three, the prominent mood swings. Either you start experiencing low mood, irritability, not experiencing any sense of happiness or satisfaction in engaging in activities, forgetfulness, or poor concentration. Uh, you can't engage in quality time with your children. So these are a couple of stress-related symptoms at the home atmosphere which we can identify. And lastly, there is something called as anhedonia, loss of interest. If you start experiencing loss of interest in doing things or appreciating things what you have been doing, these are a couple of tips in order to identify uh, how to uh, acknowledge that one is undergoing stress. I failed to mention one last thing, which is more common in this kind of crisis, that is panic attacks. Now, this kind of panic attacks pushes you towards an emergency. People experience palpitations, nervousness, fearfulness that something terrible can happen. These are small bouts, but they present in the form of an emergency. Now, these symptoms can be seen as a screening symptoms in order to understand one is going through stress.
So that's a long list of things to be aware of in terms of the fact that when it's a new normal, when we're adjusting to life the way it is, with fear of going out, with managing a new lifestyle, a new cycle, what is it then? Thank you, Dr. Babu. I'm going to now ask Parul about your view on this as an adult, as a mother. What does it look like to you? What are the stories you've heard, and what do you think is the reality out there?
So like I mentioned, I think the first reality that has struck all of us big time is this whole reality of MeTime. It's, I think for years we've all said, when I get the time, I will do this. And staying at home, especially for stay-at-home mothers, I think it's been an eye-opener for everybody around the world to actually get a feel of what a stay-at-home mom actually goes through. So there's never any time. I mean, like from morning to evening, Dr. Babu also mentioned the various things that, moms are just getting stretched in all directions. So for sure, I think more than the children, I would like to ask, are the moms okay? Because, we're just taking each day as it comes. We have a task list for the day and we're just going through that. You asked me about the reality, Shreya, and that's the reality. We're not being able to do the things we ever envisaged us doing when we have the time and stuff like that. So the primary thing that we see around us is guilt. Now, all of this, a mother, I think that's one of the primal feelings, emotions associated with motherhood, which is guilt. So we're thinking that, my kids are at home. I have all this supposed time on my hand. Why am I not being able to spend it with her? For a mom who's also working, who also has to spend her time on endless meetings through the day, she's torn. She's got a little kid who's hanging around saying, Mama, now you're at home, can't you do this with me? And she's like, okay, after 10 minutes, after 15 minutes. And it just doesn't happen, because then she has to go and get the other chores of the house and everything. For the older moms, for the moms of older kids rather, it's a huge time of uncertainty and anxiety. I mean, I have teens, and we were in the middle of board exams, and the board exams are just in limbo right now. We had 4 exams left, and I don't know now what's going to happen. My kids don't know. It's the next session has started, but the boards haven't finished. So for us to try and assuage those anxieties in the children while dealing with them ourselves is huge. And Meghna is so right that first figure out where are your anxieties, and especially with teenagers and all, are you transferring it to them? So I think a lot of us are dealing with that. What I've found the most reassuring part is that moms are finding their solutions. There are some people I know, there are a couple of moms we spoke to who get up at 5 a.m. This is a particular case I'm talking about. She has 2 children, and one of them is a special needs child. So, the attention there is completely different. Though she says that it's easier to deal with him rather than with her child who's neurotypical, the other child, because he just takes things as it goes. He's told, no, you can't go out today. He's fine with it. She's the one who questions that, okay, why can't we go out? But this mom, just to be able to get her sanity in place, she gets up at 5 a.m. and she does her yoga for about an hour or so. She does whatever practice she needs to do. And then she's ready for the day. By 7:30, when she has to get into the chores, she's ready for the day. So I think we're being able to deal with it in different ways, but at the end of this, the big question is, how do we get back to the, to the what we knew as normal? Because we've being able to get into a routine. We've set up systems for ourselves. We've told the children that, okay, now this is it. This is what you're going to be doing for the next month or so. Is it going to be, just back to square one? I'm sure life will be phased back to normal, as we call it. But again, I think that will be another time of overall for all of us, mentally and physically. So that's probably the next stage that we're going to have to deal with. And we might have to have this panel discussion all over again.
I just want to bring or highlight the fact that honestly, as mothers, and we were talking about mothers all this while, I don't know about other countries, but in India, for sure, our mothers are a lot more in this context disadvantaged, because the brunt of everything is on that of the mothers.
Yeah.
And it's same for homemakers and working moms alike. My neighbors, 2 of them are homemakers, and I know what they pull through in a day on an average day.
Sure.
So imagine the context now of this kind of a lockdown. They are caring for the elders, they are caregivers, they are taking care of the children. They are ensuring that if they are working, that their work is all right. They are ensuring that the husband has a free space to operate, and because men unfortunately don't get to multitask as much as they should be. So disadvantaged mums currently, and the scenario is looking to continue this way, because now after 21 days, when we were looking for a respite, here you go, there's another 15 days. Yeah. The end is not in sight, and it's very ambiguous, the state that we're in. So Meghna, I'm going to come to you, and I'm going to ask you that what do we do? What are the kind of conversations that we should be having with the children? What are the over-parenting problems we should avoid? Because right now, kids are at our disposal, and we're going to want to do everything in this time that we get. What are the importance of routine that all of you all spoke about? So Meghna, if you can tell us a little bit about that.
For sure, and I'll take time in answering this particular aspect. Yes. Allow me to do so, because multiple aspects we need to consider here. Think of the times when everything was so-called normal of Indian parenting. There was no lockdown forced on us. We were still having stay-at-home moms. We were having mommies who were doing the same mundane chores again and again. And out of 3 groups of moms, full-time working moms, part-time working moms, and stay-at-home moms, even in so-called normal circumstances, research has proven that the most stressed out group is actually stay-at-home moms. So what I'm trying to tell you over here is the clear-cut pattern when we work with families, and what we see is that in general, Indian urban parenting is still not yet reached to maturity of the concept of sharing the load. So the very first thing that Indian families need to analyze more and more, and more so true for urban parenting, because more or less urban India is right now having nuclear families. We are not having joint family system where one child is raised by 3 or 4 or multiple set of cousins, grandparents, aunts and uncles. It's 2 young parents with 1 or 2 children. So we really are anyhow, that's the reason I started from the time when things were normal, that anyhow Indian urban parenting was not something which is a cakewalk. We had our own challenges. Now the sharing of load is far more important in cases like this, when everyone is doing what they are doing as per their pace, but mommy dear is supposed to manage everything, like having some magic wand in hand and running everything on time, providing meals to family, cleaning up the home, managing her professional commitments, and then raising children with no other help. Now this is unrealistic. To be honest, this is unrealistic. And if a mommy dear expects all this to do, I'm sorry, your aim is something which is not reachable. So let's be realistic. Come back to reality, mommy dear. And first thing that you need to do is to sit with your family with probably a pen and paper. I did it, I myself being mother of 2. The very first day when we knew we were entering into this phase for, as you said, the end is not in sight. I sat with pen and paper and I asked who is doing what and at what time. So the concept of routine comes: who is helping me in cleaning, grooming, and mopping, who is helping me in doing dishes, who is helping me in cooking and baking, who is helping me in doing laundry, and who is folding the laundry. And then apart from that, I'm doing professional commitments. And then all of us need to find time for exercises, yoga, or anything that you want to do. And then, of course, the family board game time or family meal time. So this is too much to ask from one body. So I actually gave all the tasks to everybody. We do have our struggles. Someday, somebody's not doing it. Then we came to the level of giving punishments also. So you really need to bring a concept of routine, but mommy dear, get into a mood where you ask for help if you are not getting it, and give the concept of sharing the load, because trust me, it's not only your point or your responsibility to take care of the family. In fact, I see a pattern. Our Indian children in general, especially this particular generation that I see, is having everything on platter. Everything is coming to them so easy that unfortunately our children are not realizing the very thin line between I need to earn it and I deserve it or I own it. And this process that I need to earn it is anyhow missing in general scenario. So when I was giving the concept to many children I work with, on an average, I talk to 30 to 40 families in a day. And I always say to every children, hey, buddy, if you need to stay fit, you need to earn it. And that's why you hand wash. And that's why you stay indoors. And similar thing I would say to mommies, hey, mommies, if you need to stay fit, you need to earn it by asking for help, by sharing the load. Don't take everything on yourself. And daddy dear plays the most significant role in that. And I'll come back to that later when I will answer more of your questions. But this is very much from my end as of now.
Yeah, Meghna, I'm going to also quickly ask you before I move to Dr. Babu about the soldier theory and the 3 Rs. And if you can tell us a little bit about that.
Very close to my heart. And for sure, I would love to talk. I'll give you one example, and I use it with many families. Most common question that children are asking nowadays, why is it that I cannot go out? This concept of social distancing is very new to us as adults. So for sure, it is very new to children. And most of the times, parents end up saying that you'll get sick if you go out. There is a virus outside, a monster is outside who will really catch you and you will get sick. Good answer, decent answer. No, I won't say no, big no. But a better way to approach this is that, hey, buddy, we need to beat this virus, and for that, we need to stay indoors. And this will give the concept of fighting. I am a fighter who is fighting a battle rather than I feel helpless. So certain differences we need to know. Empowering our children as soldiers, that hey, when you stay indoors, you not only keep yourself safe, you are keeping the country safe, and you are fighting a battle by being at home. You need not to fight it at the borders of the country. So this concept of fighting a battle like a soldier motivates children much more than anything else. They participate, they take the ownership, and that is very important for them to have the sense of ownership. So know the difference, parents, between empowering your children or giving a sense of helplessness to them. Developing fear or developing fighting capacities. These are the things that you need to take note of. The 3 Rs. Yes, please.
Yeah, the 3 Rs. The 3 Rs, please. Yes.
Yeah, the 3 Rs work wonderfully for parents, and we have seen it giving us great results in past 2 weeks only. The 3 Rs that each and every parent needs to know is, first thing is reassurance. Parents, your physical presence matters. It matters in crisis. I always say, in general, it's fine. Allow your children to explore the world on their own, and you take a back seat. You don't be present. I always, or most of the time when I talk to families, I always say, mommies and daddies, don't jump to solve the problems of your children. Just being around is enough. And this is very important over here. So your reassurance, the very first R is reassurance. Hey, buddy, we are together and we'll fight it out. We are trying our level best to keep the family safe. You are helping me. And this is something which is very important to keep saying to children again and again. The second are something very close to my heart. We have settled in a new routine, and this is a wonderful thing. But on an average, a child's brain needs a routine which is not deviating more than 40 minutes. So, for example, your children were used to get up at 6 a.m. in the morning for catching the school bus, and now they are getting up at 8. I'm very fine. Please don't force them to come out of bed. My husband does that with my children. But to be honest, I always say don't force them to come out of bed at 5 in the morning. I'm fine if they delay it for 2-3 hours. But then one day at 8 and another day at 11 is something a big no-no. So I'm fine if you get up one day at 8 and then one day at 8:30. So this gap is fine to have between 40 minutes. If you deviate more than that, parents, it is worrisome. So don't deviate from your new routine much. Stay in the routine. So your meal times, breakfast between 9 to 10 should happen if that is your usual time. So that routine problem is actually the solution is rooted in routine. So that is where routine comes from. And the third R, regulation. And I'm not talking about regulation of emotions of children. I'm talking about regulation of emotions for adults. So parents dear, put your oxygen mask first before you put it on your children. Take care of yourself to take care of your children. Self-care is not selfish. You really need to take care of yourself to serve your children better. So regulate your own emotions and focus on one significant aspect of health, which is emotional health. In this pandemic, we are actually highly concerned about physical and physiological health. I would heavily recommend everybody to focus also on emotional health. So regulate your own emotions, parents. Your children are watching you.
Yeah, that's a poignant point, because now I'm going to turn the lens on to Dr. Babu and ask him, what is it that you can do as adults to overcome mental stress? How can parents, mothers working from home who have to take care of office work, home chores, avoid stressful situations? How do you keep calm during the crisis? What is it that parents have to do, especially in context of self-care that Meghna is talking about? Importance of taking care of your needs first, the oxygen mask on you first. So, Dr. Babu, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I'll answer this question largely in two fronts. One is for mothers and the other one for adults in general. But before that, I would agree with Parul what she mentioned. This is a definite time where the role of mothers or home care individuals, their contribution to the family system is very well understood. Nobody can escape how a family has to function. What is the amount of effort it takes to run a family, to be a mother, to be a parent, including myself. Now I can't just run away from the home, claiming some other job or responsibility. I have to be part of the family system. Even I have to be part of household chore, be it cooking, be it cleaning. So I think this is a wonderful experimental phase. We have to embrace that first.
Okay.
So that would be the first step. Now coming down to what are the key strategies for mothers? I would coin it as CARE, C-A-R-E. I think much has been already summed up by the previous speaker, but the larger principles are C for communication. Communication is the key tool. If the couples can communicate as far as the burden of parenting is concerned, much of the issues are addressed. The husband and wife has to make a transparent communication about what they are going through, what they expect, or what they anticipate. Number 2A, active listening. If you don't listen to your child, you don't know what the child is experiencing. Your job is not to solve the crisis in mind. Your job is to listen through so that the child can accept and understand and solve the crisis. Number 3, responsibility. Couple can share the responsibility in parenting, wherein both get to look after the child in turns, and there is also a breathing space for self in parenting practice. The last one is practicing empathy. if you see Indian parenting practices and the Western parenting practices, we are largely, there's an individualistic practice what is being carried in West. It's more of collectivistic pattern. Here, the grandparents are living under the same roof, the parents are living in the same roof. If you try to relate with the child empathically and understand and communicate, what is the virus? What is the crisis? What is the need for hand washing? Being part of the experiment, bringing in creativity. You can see a lot of celebrity videos. Why do they make? Why are these happening? Why is it appealing? Because there's a creativity and there's a fun element with the knowledge. Now, these are 4 principles for parenting. But when it comes to adults in general, I think we all need to practice mindfulness. The primary base concept of mindfulness is to focusing on now than after. You have to root yourself in the current moment. There are too many questions unanswered, be it financial, be it job related, be it your business related. There are so many questions unanswered and nobody has definite answers for them. There's no purpose of trying to answer them now, because those answers only time would facilitate us. So focus on now. Number 2, focus on the variables what you can control. What can I do being at home? How can I make this next 20 days function? We are in the middle of this lockdown, as Parul mentioned. The phase is different in the first week and it is different now. So what we can take for focus on is the variables what we can control. Try to build a physical and psychological hygiene, that is, maintain a proper sleep cycle. Maintain a proper hygiene, food practices, healthy eating practices, because that is going to boost up your immunity, and that is the biggest defense right now in the kind of infectious crisis what we are going through. Maintain a good personal and physical hygiene. Practice physical distancing, not social distancing. Try to connect with your friends, with your family, use all the digital platforms. So the more and more we are in connect with others, there's a sense of collectiveness, there's a sense of perceived support system. Now these things do play a major role in psychological well-being. And I think lastly, I would say that build a routine. Have a definite time to you wake up, have a definite time you go to bed. If you are working from home, designate a particular workstation. Have a definite work hours. Communicate with your spouse what is your work hours. The moment you sit in a designated workplace, the family would appreciate, okay, now is the work time. And then you try to be part of the family routine. So if we have this kind of routine, in fact, I would suggest that, try to dress up as though you walk to your office to sit at your workstation. Trying to bring that barrier between work life, personal life, and then the me time. So it needs a formal decorum. If you create a formal decorum, the mind would appreciate that. And these kind of associations would give us the much needed balancing act. So I think, and lastly, avoid panic. The panic is largely in the mind. So bring in your creativity, spend quality time, and I think it's time for experimentation. Just the way people are experimenting new dishes, probably experiment new ways of communicating. Probably try to talk to your child and say what else can be, how wonderful coronavirus can be. Make a drawing out of it. Doesn't matter. So you bring in all your creativity, how to do a treadmill without a treadmill at home, how to build in a physical routine with your child. So the creativity is the greatest balance at times like this, and definitely humor has a large role to play in all this stuff. I think this is a time where the families are going to be more stronger. Let's take it that way.
Okay, so Parul, you've heard from both our experts, your perspectives, your thoughts right now. What do you feel after having listened to the two of them, and what are your takeaways?
I'm glad I came in after them because I've heard some really interesting perspectives and great pointers to take home. Absolutely. When Meghna said she's talking about chores, I mean, I can't even tell you, I'm a firm believer in making children do their chores. And there are chores that every single age group can do. A toddler can do something and a teenager can very well do a lot. So that really does help, because I think the idea is to take the mental load off mommy dear, as Meghna called her, because, at the end of the day, how much can that one person take on? And even if physically, even if she has help at home, the scheduling, arranging, aaj kya khana banega, do I have vegetables to make that khana today? All of that is really a lot. So in fact, I think food is another thing I'd like to talk about. Let's not make food the center of our existence right now. I think a lot of people are doing that. These gourmet recipes which are doing the rounds on social media. Oh my God. Just when I'd convinced the children that dal chawal hi milega, there's butter chicken doing the round. So it's really, it's going to be difficult. I think the family needs to get together and decide that, food is not going to be the center of our existence in these days. And what we've done is we've drawn up a menu for the week. So and along with the kids. And my kids are older, so of course that helps. But, we've just drawn that up, and that portion of my task is done for the week. So Sunday evening, if we sit down and draw up the schedule for the week, I can order my veggies on Monday for the week. And I know that, okay, this is what I need, and itna tomato, itna pyaz, and whatever, and I'm done. At least that part is off my head. Then fine, whatever runs out, you make your provisions, because this is a time when even grocery shopping and veggie shopping has to be done judiciously. You can't just last minute run down to the niche ka dukaan and get your, stuff that you've run out of. So that is one thing that we've definitely done. Coming back to the chores, in fact, I just like to say that it's a life skill. Learning to fold your own clothes, learning to put them, running a washing machine, how to, sew a button on your own shirt, learning how to wash bartan. These are all life skills. And if this is our golden opportunity, if we don't take this opportunity now, we've lost a good chance to do that. So I fully support that. I just fully support what Meghna said about chores. Dr. Babu, I loved what you said about humor. I think that's really our tool right now. If we can make do, if we can get, the family to take things lightly and to enjoy whatever we have right now, the moments that we have together, the quality time, and do something, like you said, creative. We took out a 1,000-piece puzzle, which had been lying in the cupboard for 10 years. Because it was just too intimidating. 1,000-piece, meaning whether it'll take 3 days. I have 30 days now. So, we took it out. We made it. Unfortunately, one piece was missing at the end of it after doing the whole thing. But the joy of doing that was a lot of fun. We painted stuff which had been lying, drab and dirty for so long. So yeah, these kind of projects really help. The one thing that I would like to say, and again, Dr. Babu touched upon it, is, reach out, network. So we've noticed, and we know this for a fact, and all of us know it, that moms need to be told that you are not alone. What you're going through is not unique to you. A lot of people, you may be going through, of course, there will be things, circumstances, yours are unique to you. But in general, just reach out to people. If you're feeling stressed and if you're feeling, overwhelmed, you really do need to reach out and to network with people, especially if there's, you feel that there is all the symptoms that both the experts talked about. If you feel that setting in your child or in yourself, just reach out. And you've talked about the power of sharing stories, Shreya. And we know that's just so important. And it makes a difference to people's lives. The minute you share stories, we have a support group, and a lot of people have shared their stories anonymously. And right now, like Dr. Babu mentioned, there is an increase in the cases of domestic violence and decrease in the reporting. Because where do the women report? Where will they go? But just by reaching out, getting a little bit of reassurance from peers, from experts, they feel better. They feel, okay, fine, I need to survive another 10 days. I'll survive another 10 days. So I think that's another very, very important thing. The one point which moms have told us works with them is to disconnect from all those irritating WhatsApp groups which are just bombarding you with information. Fake news is the other thing which we all need to learn how to recognize and disconnect from. The lions were released on the streets of Russia, of Moscow, to keep people indoors. Come on, that is fake news. We should know that. Why forward it to another 10 people or another 100 people and, create some kind of story, mystery, drama around it? So disconnect to connect, disconnect from, fake news and connect within. There are so many other things. We know the reliable sources of information, WHO for anything health related. You've got the government authorized sites, you've got the Arogya app, you've got so many authorized, credible sources of information. Let's just, stick with that. So all in all, I agree, pull on your oxygen mask first, for all the adults, mom, dad, everybody there. Only then can we take this further.
Yeah, listening to you guys, I just remembered a couple of things. Like Dr. Babu said, Corona is good if you look at what it's done for the planet, and what is happening with animals and climate change. And,
sure.
So you need to find the silver lining. That's important. Yes. Talking about what Meghna was saying, I remember reading this thing saying, all you've been asked to do to save the world is to stay on your couch. Don't mess this one up. So various things like this, when you look at it, you realize it is a weird, odd time, but it has unified the world with removing all discrimination in all form. Having said that, I have last two questions, and I'm going to quickly ask you to do like quick observations so we can wrap up on time. One, of course, was fathers. As equal parents, what are fathers going through? Yes, moms are impacted, but impacted moms also sometimes lead to impacted fathers, or equally they get impacted. So quick thoughts, Meghna, Dr. Babu, Parul.
Very important point, because I have seen that the most common question coming to me from daddies and mommies both is that, can daddy dear be of more help? And I always say, yes, always. Scientifically answering this question, and this should help many parents on an average, be it running into a situation of pandemic or in general leading our lives. On an average, every single parent ends up doing two kinds of parenting. One is instrumental and second is effective. Instrumental parenting is, be it of any age group of children. Instrumental parenting is when you do the daily mundane chores with your children, which is cleaning, mopping, you are folding laundries with them, you are cooking, baking, anything. Basic day-to-day mundane chores, when you are mending a furniture, cleaning a cupboard, all these things that you almost do every day come under the category of instrumental parenting. Effective parenting, when you read a book, when you solve a puzzle with your child, when you watch a movie together, when you have an end goal to it, academic activities, homeschooling, nowadays going on, all this comes under the category of effective parenting. And in general, to all the parents who are listening, I would say, if you are in crisis, or if you are having higher stress levels in family, if the routine is not as usual, and even if you are leading a life which is short of time, which all of us feel when the situation was so-called normal, I always suggest to go blindly for instrumental parenting. Blindly go for that. So if God has given you 10 minutes in hand with your family, kindly clean the cupboard instead of reading a book to your children. It's as simple as that. So what I would heavily recommend here, parents, please understand that the moment you enter into instrumental parenting, not only you are sharing your load, the family bonding that is happening through these daily chores, when you are cleaning the cupboard together, nothing can beat that. No vacation, no overseas vacation can give you that pleasure. The one pleasure that you get when you clean the cupboard, fold the laundry, throw the cushion covers on each other while folding the laundry, these things matter a lot, and that brings humor also. When you converse, when you communicate, the first C that Dr. Babu highlighted, that is very important. The second thing that I would say quickly to wrap up is understanding parents, and this is especially true in this lockdown, is that Government of India or many other governments across globe are asking you to maintain social distancing. But social distancing does not mean social isolation. So stay connected. Social distancing is not asking you to not call your neighbor and just check, hey, how are you doing, dear? Social distancing and social isolation, these two are very different aspects. So have video calls of your children with their friends. I have seen videos that my many clients have sent to me where a 4-year-old is showing a broken toy to the friend on a video call. Hey, they see the head is broken, and the boy over on the other side of the call is telling all the tricks to mend it. So these are the things that matter a lot in the times of social distancing. Don't socially isolate yourself. But one thing that Parul already highlighted, I always say we need a mask to put on our mouth, but we also need a mask on our ears. We need to filter the information that's going on in our ears, because that's impacting the Mr. Brain right away. So too much of information given to our children, dangerous. Age appropriate information about virus is fine, but if you're giving them the data of deaths, I'm sorry parents, that's not required. Any age group of your children, I'm sorry, that's not required. So put a mask on your ears also, so that you can filter the information. I think Parul has given us very apt examples of how to filter it out.
Yes. So Dr. Babu, something for the daddies.
Well, I think largely previous speaker has covered up. I think I only suggest 2 strategies here. As far as fathers are concerned, it is naturally the father's perception of the burden of taking care of the family. They believe they are the masters. Try not to be the masters. Believe that you are all traveling to the same boat and you are just one traveler to it. Now that acceptance is quite large, because you believe that you are the caregiver and protector of the family, and you need to see through that all the harm is taken away. Now don't try to build this perception. You are part of the same boat. Number 2, men struggle to communicate, open up if they are in distress. Now that is very essential. That's what I said, try to be transparent in communicating, at least with your spouse at a particular level, where when you are in distress, if there are certain things which are troubling you, please speak. I think these 2 strategies precisely are applicable for men in general, fathers in general. I would just like to share this. Also, Indian Psychiatric Society, in association with UNICEF and WHO, as they have compiled up a large list of volunteers, psychiatrists all across the country, almost 600 to 700 psychiatrists who have enrolled for this, and which have been spread out in different states, chapter-wise, state-wise, who are providing free services. And you can get the details on IBS website. So if the adults find it difficult to communicate, if there are certain issues which they don't know how to handle or address, if they need a professional help, this should be a very good source, which has been provided by Indian Psychiatric Society in association with the government and WHO and UNICEF. So that should be a good portal to seek help professionally.
Okay, great. Parul, any quick thoughts on something for
on dads?
on
Where do
dads?
I start? You see, our platform is Mom's Press, so we're all about the moms. So yeah, plenty to say about the dads. No, but actually, it's very basic, and of course, our experts have already covered it. But I mean, it's all important for dads to pitch in. It's not a favor. It's not really a medal winning job that you pitched in. Oh my God, today I did Bartan. You're not going to get a medal. It's your house. It's your the tasks are all shared. And if you don't have help, you have to pitch in. More importantly, you have to pitch in because you are a role model. And I can't emphasize this enough, because if your son is watching you, he's going to learn that, household responsibilities are mine as much as my sister's. If your daughter is watching you, she will also learn that, my existence is not gender defined. And it's not that there are no gender roles that I am being subjected to in the house. And that's a huge learning for a girl as she's growing up. And she really needs that. Boys need it too. Boys also need to see their dads doing these things. I can go on and on about it, but I think I made the point that, just to be a role model, they have to take part in household chores. The other thing that I'd like to say, I'm switching tables now, and I'd like to tell the moms that, we need to give up that control.
Yes.
And if the dusting is not done to the, like the degree that we would do it, it's all right. It doesn't matter. So we need to also take a step back and say, all right, I'm going to be distributing chores to my family. And if they're not done to the 100% degree that we like, it's all right. We can live with it. Because, typically we've seen everybody saying that, I gave my child this to do or my husband that to do, and they did it like this. And I said, forget it, I'll do it myself. So please don't succumb to that. It's also a trick. The family uses that as a trick. So do not fall for it. And I think the biggest thing is we need to give up that kind of, control fanatics that we are. We have to give that up. And role models from all sides, from all aspects.
Absolutely. I remember this line which says, chores don't discriminate, people do. So, it's true. Life skills are not gender defined. Yeah. So with that, quickly, this is going to be a rapid fire because I just have enough time to get your thoughts. Dr. Meghna and Parul, common concerns that you've heard so far, 2 or 3 of the top ones. I know we've addressed a lot of those issues, but what are the common concerns that you're hearing?
Well, I will take it from all perspectives because I hear it from all. Mommies, they are feeling that they are burning out. Even if you stay at home moms or moms who are having professional commitments as well, they are burning out, and the solution to that lies in voice it over to the family and share the load. And please don't be control freak. Parul very well said that. The second aspect that's coming from daddies is that sometimes they are lost also. So mommies, please understand that daddies want to help. Sometimes they don't know how. So giving them a step-by-step approach will help. Dividing the task in the family member will help. Tell them that you need this help. So sometimes daddies want to help, but they are clueless how. Please pitch in for that. And daddies, you need to walk that extra mile because trust me, your voice decibels will stimulate the part of the brain of every single family member, which will bring leadership out. So your role is critical over here. The third thing and something very close to me, children. Children, I would say, are highly adaptable. They are fighters. Every single child is born leader. We make them followers. This is the time children need to show their leadership. Mommies and daddies allow that to happen by trusting their capacities. That's it from my end.
Awesome. Dr. Babu.
Yeah, I think the most common factor, what I believe here, is adaptability, and adaptability has many definitions. I think it's a good approach. If you try to adapt how let your child decide, let the child's creativity be used. I think that is a good approach. To try to resolve many times. You just ask your child what can be done, and try to incorporate that. So adaptability on different fronts can be a good approach. But coming down to, if I have to speak from the biological perspective, one common complaint I get through is anxiety and sleep disturbance. I would suggest try to practice the normal sleep hygiene. The sleep hygiene consists of disciplining time you go to bed, time you wake up. Try not to sleep during the daytime. Keep your daytime busy. No coffee, tea, alcohol, cigarettes, anything after 6 or 7. Try to have your meal at least half an hour or 45 minutes before you go to bed. You can have a warm water bath before you go to bed. These are basic, simple sleep hygiene practices. Even after this, if you're having disturbance in sleep or any kind of anxiety issues, please feel free to seek a professional help. And psychological well-being and the consultations with a psychiatrist or psychologist is very much practically possible by telemedicine consults. You don't need to be physically present. Now that is something, so that requires only one thing, that is called as preparedness to seek help. Yeah. So if we can seek help when and where we require, many a times in my line of work, I believe medicines are not necessary. Probably just by talking, lot many things are put into perspective. Yeah. So feel free, open up and seek help.
Absolutely. Parul, your last few thoughts.
I
Good.
don't have any
Last one.
recommendations. I think Meghna and Dr. Babu have summed it up really, really well. And I think it's so important to do all of those things that they've talked about. And all I'd like to say is that, now the novelty has worn off. We had fun in the first week. We were all delighted to be home. The second week was a stretch. The third week was a struggle and also getting into a routine. We still have 2-3 weeks to go. And, frankly, I think what we need to be prepared about is we don't know when this is going to end. And even once it does, we have to be realistic that we can't just step out and get back to, our cars on the road and rushing to restaurants, rushing to supermarkets, sitting in a movie theater. I think that we all really, the call of the hour right now is responsibility. And if we are going to be responsible adults, only then will our children see what that means. And, they will understand how to do it when their turn comes. So it's responsibility right now to comply with what we're being asked to do, which is essentially stay home and stay safe, sanitize the things which are coming from outside, and just don't be silly about things. We all know how to do that. And responsible behavior once the lockdown is over will be to take things slowly and phase it out for ourselves. So let's all just be responsible.
Absolutely. And with that, my last thing, which is absolutely going to be a one-line answer from each one of you, is just this line which says, it's important to remember that we are in strange times and it's okay to not be okay. So your parting thoughts on that line, Meghna?
Accept your emotions. Accept your emotions, be it children, be it adults. I always say that if you feel like crying, I conveyed this to many mommies and daddies. If you feel like crying, no harm in crying in front of your children. Tell that I had a bad day today. I'm not in best of my mood. So accept what you are going through and accept it gracefully. Accept it gracefully. It is perfectly fine. Having these ups and downs in your emotions is a part and parcel of human life. But one thing that you should keep in your mind, be thankful to what you have. You are not confined in a jail. You are still in your home, in your comfort zone. So be thankful for what you have, but accept your emotions. Acknowledge. The two ways are very important, accepting and acknowledging what you are going through.
Yeah.
I think
And Dr. Babu?
I think I'll add the third A. That's my response. Accept and acknowledge. The third A is altruism, because only being together, we will be sailing through to the other side. Embrace altruism. Try to help each other, because only if you express altruism, you don't know which way the help is going to turn back towards you. Since this is a platform for motherhood, I would say mothers are naturally altruistic. Now it's time for everybody to be altruistic, because that would solve many things and we would see the green on the other side.
Yeah. And Paru?
It's okay to not be okay, Shreya. You said that, and I think I totally agree. We've all been not okay. I think we've all done things we've never done before. We're making our children do things they've never done before. And this is, again, I say the word again, it's our golden opportunity to do all this. And in some way, I would love an opportunity to do this again, but in some way, God forbid that we get into another pandemic to cause it. So while it's there, make the most of it. And of course, I think I totally agree with Dr. Babu and Meghna when they said, all about the 3 A's altruism. Of course, we need to do that. We need to recognize our privilege and make sure that we extend it to others. We are super, super lucky. We have all our food supplies. We've got shelter. We've got everything coming to us. Let's extend that to the others. And from the other side, let's just make the most of the time that we have with our family and, make it genuine, meaningful quality time.
Absolutely. With that, it's a wrap. Thank you so much, panelists. I think we can continue for a couple of hours more because there's enough conversation to be had in this end. I just have to say that, while I've had all of this conversation, I have to confess that I'm actually stuck in a resort in Coorg called the Ibni with my mom and my daughter, the most important people in my life, and we have skeletal staff. So while all of this is going on outside, I still get to, be outside with nature, and my daughter gets to play outside. So, signing off with a note of gratitude. And gratitude to all of you. Thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you to Practo. Thank you, Parul and Mom's Presso, and of course, Meghna and Clay. I think this is a great conversation. I'm looking forward and hoping to actually do something with all of the information that I've learned here today. I'm going to surely write about it. Thank you so much, everybody, for having this conversation. Thank you, guys.